up post earnings, but stock got a hit last week, and the news keeps piling in. Joining us, Tony Bancroft, for a check-in on the stock, aerospace and defense analyst joining us from Gabelli. Tony, thanks for being back on the show.
Hey, Oliver. Great to be back.
Appreciate that. So is there a way to make this work in the strategy still? Is it a lost cause? I mean, what's going on in your mind?
Yeah, it's still a large position in our Gabelli Commercial Aerospace and Defense GTF, ticker GCAD. I think long term, the thesis is intact. All the secular tailwinds remain. Backlog remains. Backlog continues over the long term to grow. On the defense side, I don't think anything is getting less volatile in the geopolitical environment, and I think Boeing is well positioned there. And I think in the near term, they really need to. It boils down to four things. They need to They need to announce a new CEO now that they've decided that CEO Calhoun is going to step down at the end of the year. They need to get the Spirit deal done. They need to increase 737 MAX production rates and announce the timelines on that once the FAA comes in and weighs in. And then on the 787, they need to get the supply chain figured out and get their production rates and deliveries squared away there as well. So in the near term, those things really need to sort of happen and get in motion before probably you see any near-term movement on the stock. It's probably just going to be volatile. Probably until then.
Let's take the first one there, the CEO shift. I mean, to me, that's kind of in a way embodied what I view as their sort of not nonchalant, but like just kind of like approach to this whole thing that has been a little bit sluggish. I don't think commensurate with the urgency that the public would like them to carry it out with, this kind of long transition. So what do you want to see when that actually happens? Is there a possibility they would move that up? Like, how set in stone is that? And what do you want to kind of see as the first thing that CEO does?
Yeah, I think you've really touched on something there. I think it appears that way. And obviously the market is taking it that way. But I think really what's going on is they're waiting to figure out how the Spirit deal is going to work out. I know CEO Calhoun has alluded to that they really want to get this deal done before he turns over the reins or announces it. And I think there's something more involved in that. I think obviously the CEO of Spirit, Pat Shanahan, I think is in the running as one of the top candidates or potential candidates for the CEO job for Boeing. And obviously you would want to get that deal done and then probably work out, CEO Shanahan's option of opportunity of becoming CEO of Boeing before you can announce that. So I think they're sort of in a chicken before the egg kind of issue here. And it's going to be a problem, I think, until they get that worked out. But I think over the long term, it really hasn't changed the story. Their backlog is strong. They're going to get the rates up. That line, those four lines have capacity much higher than 38 a month potential. And I think in the 25, 26 timeframe, you're going to start seeing back to that 50 rate a month. And that's going to be a lot of operating leverage. They'll get rid of the shadow plants and getting workers back on the main lines to operate and run the 737 facilities. And you're going to see a lot of goodness coming out.
What do you expect to be the main impact of a Spirit deal if it does happen? It kind of seems to make sense maybe to put it all under one roof, but the government has been pretty reticent to allow kind of any deals to happen. So odds of that actually going through, and then what would be the immediate impact?
Yeah, I think there's a lot going on here as well. That's another good point you brought up. I think the FAA, obviously the federal government, the agencies probably want this to happen just because of sort of the feedback that was passed along from the January 5th incident, that it just didn't make sense to have the critical component, at a completely separate entity, a publicly traded entity. And I think that that just needs to happen. I don't think the federal government in the long run is going to have issue with it. I'm sure they'll have to figure out what they have to figure out. I think the long pole in the tent, as we all know, is how they're going to deal with the two Airbus facilities in Ireland and in North Carolina. And I'm sure they're working on that right now. And they've publicly have spoken about that as well. So I think once they're able to work through that, you're probably going to see something happen, an announcement happen. And they've also mentioned that at least twice, that the second quarter is sort of the timeline for an announcement.
Okay. All right. Good to know your timeline and kind of what you're working on. So we'll check back in along the way. Thanks for the update, Tony. Appreciate that.